Lance and I didn't get enough time together before he got sick, and I still feel that loss very deeply. But our first couple of years set the tone for how we lived out the rest of our life. So, Jenna and I have recorded some of the details to give you some insight as to how we managed for 27 years. And also, we will be referring back to some of those stories in future episodes. It wasn't an easy life that I lived. It wasn't perfect. In fact, it was far from it. But Lance and I shared a love that is very rare, and we lived out the rest of his life the way that we did because of the love that we shared.
Very excited to have this conversation with you. I've loved every time you've shared little bits of Lance's in your story, and um, I've just always appreciated the little details that you've shared. And it's so fun to listen to because, like you said, it is a rare love. And I think one that everyone dreams about and maybe hopes for, and not everyone is lucky enough to find. So it is fun listening to it to know that real love like that still exists. So
One of the things that really struck me when I was reading through these letters is how real we were. We had hopes and dreams and fears, and we had both come from lives where we were hurt by the people that were closest to us. So we found it hard to trust people. And I had built up quite some walls around myself. It was like a fortress. Nobody was going to get in, and Lance included. And he just slowly removed parts of the wall, and there he was. And I'm so thankful that we met when we did, um, and that we could just be ourselves with each other. We often made other people uncomfortable with how real we were with each other, but it never stopped us from doing that. So uh, I can't wait to share some of that. I have dozens of letters from him, a lot more letters that I wrote to him because he was deployed, but I can't wait to share all of these things with you.
me either. Well, um let's start with how you guys met. Tell me the story of how you actually met him.
Oh, I love this story. Okay. At the time, I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that, of course, when a relationship ends, it's probably not for good reasons, right? And we had lived together for 2 years. By the time I was 22, and when I met Lance, I had decided I'm done. I'd been in one other relationship, long-term relationship prior to that. And I really didn't like dating. And I thought, "Ah, I think I'd be okay spending my life alone. I don't need to have somebody in my life. I'm an introvert. I do a lot of things by myself. And even at that age, it didn't really matter to me. So I had kind of gone off on my own and was carving out a life for myself. And I was going out with my friends. I did have a lot of friends, so I would go out with my friends frequently. And one of my favorite things was to go country dancing. And I was living in the Denver area at the time, and we would go up to the Grizzly Rose. It's this huge dance floor, and they would have some of the up and coming country stars and even some of the old rock bands that would come and play there. And it was always such a great place to go and dance and listen to live music, which I love. And I was there one time and I met a group of people, and started hanging out with them a little bit. And one of them began telling me about his brother who was coming to town, and he couldn't wait to see him. The brother was in the Navy, and he was in between orders, and he was coming down from his home of record, which was Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And he was coming down with a couple of his Navy buddies, and they were driving in, and it was going to be that night finally that they were arriving. And I knew that they were driving a long ways. I think that they were coming from Yellowstone, and that's a long drive from Yellowstone down to Denver. So it was about 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and I called my friend to see if his brother and friends had made it. And Lance answered the phone. And I said, "Hey, this is Ruth Ann, and I heard that y'all were coming down, and I just wanted to make sure that you made it okay." And he said, "Yeah, we're getting ready to go out to the Grizzly Rose. You should go out with us." And I thought, he hasn't seen his brother in 3 years, so I don't want to interfere on their time together. And so I was already ready for bed anyway. And I said, "Nah, I think I'll stay home tonight. I'm already ready for bed." And he's like, "Seriously, it's 7 o'clock on a Friday night. You should go out with us." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll go out with you if you'll dance with me." And he agreed. So I got ready and I went over there. And this was somewhere that I had spent quite a bit of time. It was not in the best area. It was one of those interior corridors or hallways that you have to walk down to get to each of the apartments. And but it didn't bother me because, like I said, I was there often. And I went in and I knocked on the door, and the door opens just a few inches, and somebody peeks their eye out. I mean, I can't even see his whole face, and he's looking at me. I'm like, "Are you going to let me in?" And he just kind of flings open the door and goes, "Come on in." And I was so irritated already. I'm like, "Here I am. I have put myself together. I've come all the way over here to go out with you because you asked me to go. And now you're afraid to open the door for me." And so I stormed past him, and I turned around and I said, "You must be Lance," looking at him. And he says, "No, I'm Danny." He points to one of the other guys and he says, "That's Lance over there." And I turned and I looked at him and I went, "Nah." And he goes, the guy who answered the door says, "I'm just kidding. I'm Lance. That's Danny." So we started off with, just that little, um, right from the beginning, he's already pulling my leg. They all finished getting ready and we got in the car. His brother and his brother's girlfriend and I were sitting in the front, and Lance and his two friends, Tony and Danny, were sitting in the back with him. And we all headed off to the Grizzly Rose. And I just remember thinking all the way there, and actually right after I saw him too, man, he is really cute. He was so good looking. But I didn't think that he was as great as he seemed to think he was. So I wasn't gonna give in to any of that. And we were at the Grizzly Rose, and he came over and he asked me, well, we were all sitting at a table, and he asked me if I wanted to dance. And I said yes. And he said, "All right, let me go get a couple of drinks, and then we can get out on the dance floor." So he takes off and he's gone forever. And I'm looking around and this place is packed. I have no idea where he is. I can't even see the bar from where I'm sitting. So I don't know. Did he just disappear? Couldn't have, because he rode with us, right? And all of a sudden he comes back and he's got my drink and his drink. And he's like, some gal grabbed me on my way past the dance floor and took me out. We had to dance around the dance floor. So they got done dancing and he came back over and gave me my drink. And I remembered thinking, already I'm feeling a little bit jealous because he asked me to dance and then somebody else took him out on the dance floor. So eventually we went to dance and I told him I can only yeah, I could only three step, he could only two step. And so he took me back to the little dance floor in the back so that we could practice. And I was three stepping and he was two stepping, and we were terrible. And eventually we ended up getting onto the big dance floor, and we were worse on the big dance floor because now there are people that we got to look out for, and we're bumping into people. And I think we knocked a couple of people off the dance floor, but we just kept going. We were having so much fun, and we were just talking and laughing. And we ended up staying at the Grizzly Rose. I think we shut it down and then headed back to his brother's house. And he was in town. He was supposed to be in town for a week. And we ended up spending so much time together during that week. I was ditching work to go hang out with him, which wasn't typical for me. So I knew that this was kind of a big deal because I had time off of work that I could take. I wasn't just leaving them in the lurch, but I was requesting time off of work and spending it with him. And we would go to lunch and we went up to the mountains. We would take drives and just have these amazing conversations. And we discovered that we had so many things in common. We both love to read. In fact, that was probably the beginning of those great conversations, because I went over to his brother's house one day, and on one of the days that I ditched work, and Lance was there by himself, and the door was unlocked. So I just went in, and Lance was sitting there reading a book. And I was just so shocked that he was reading. He didn't strike me as the type to read from the conversations that we'd already had. So it was a little bit surprising. Plus, I didn't really date anybody. I didn't date that many people, but I didn't date anyone who we talked about reading anyway. So we had that, and we talked about life in general, our hopes and our dreams and our beliefs. And it just seemed like everything was clicking. And he ended up extending his time there. And I think he was there. He ended up being in town for 10 days. I think that he had initially planned to be there for 8, was going to give himself a couple of days to get to a couple of extra days to get to the next duty station. And he ended up using those days to stay and hang out with me instead. And he went to leave. I said goodnight to him one evening because I needed to go back home, and he was leaving early the next morning. And so I said goodbye to him. And that whole day after I knew that he was leaving, I was just so sad. I missed him. I had spent at least a little portion of every one of the previous 10 days together. And all of a sudden he was gone. And I didn't offer my phone number, and he never asked for it.
I don't know if this is too personal. Did you kiss him in that 10 days?
Yes.
Oh, that's what all the girls want to know. But did you kiss him?
Yes. It was look at my face is all red.
And was it magical? Did you see stars?
I must have. Um uh, that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, I love that though. Here's the question. Did he ask you if he could kiss you?
No.
No.
I'll tell you what happened. We were on that dance floor. It was the first night. We were
Perfect.
we were on that practice dance floor, and he was such a terrible dancer. It was so disappointing. I mean, he seemed to have everything else going for him. And one of the things that I just loved was dancing. And I had actually told him that. And that's why I agreed to go to the Grizzly Rose, because he said he would dance with me. And so I think I was probably getting a little frustrated. That sounds like me. And um, he just kissed me, and I think that it was to distract me from the fact that he couldn't dance. And that's all he needed to do, and I was hooked. So it didn't matter after that that he couldn't dance. I was thankful that he at least attempted to.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Um, so when he left, you didn't give him your number. Did you think about giving him your number? Or were you hoping that he would ask? Or were you trying to avoid the topic? Because sometimes, when you are in a situation like that, you think, oh, this is too good to be true. And I don't want to overthink it. So I'm just gonna pretend in my mind that we're never gonna see each other again. Or maybe you thought, oh, I hope he asked for my number and we can continue this somehow.
No, I will tell you, because of where I was at in my life and the things that I had already gone through, I had decided that I didn't want to be in a relationship.
Mhm.
And it was no different, even though I had spent those 10 days with Lance, because when you first meet someone, you're, hmm, you're putting on your best face for each other, right? And
Yep.
you're showing each other all the pretty parts of yourself. I wasn't. I was being completely open, and I was saying, this is me, take it or leave it. And I wasn't doing any of the things to try and make him want to stay. I was just having fun, and he was having fun. And I really, really liked him, but he was passing through town on his way to the Navy for his orders. He'd already told me how important that life was to him, the life of a sailor, and he was going to make it his career. This is what he was going to do. He joined as a single man, and he was going to fulfill his dream of retiring from the Navy. So when I thought about him leaving, I really thought about where I was at in my life. And I thought, I'm okay with this just being a fling. This was a
Mhm.
really great 10 days that we had together. And that'll be the last relationship. We'll call it a relationship because he spent 10 days there. That'll be the last one that I've ever had, that I'll ever have. And I'm good with that because it was so much fun and it was so good.
Do you think that that mindset like helped shape your guys' relationships? Because like you said, when you're in the beginning of something new and you think, I'm going to try and show this person how wonderful I am so they'll stay. And if you weren't bound by that kind of subconscious thought, you were able to be 100% yourself. And I'm guessing he was able to be 100% himself because you weren't going to see each other again. You could just have fun. And who cares if you didn't like each other afterward? You were able to be so real with each other. That probably is what made you guys fall in love because you saw the real him and he saw the real you.
Yes. And I'm not even going to say probably, I'm going to say that was the key to it for us. Because after that 10 days, I found out that that was the real Lance too. So we were just being ourselves. We were having fun. We were enjoying each other's company. We weren't playing any games. This is me. Take it or leave it. And that was how we were through all the years that we were together. So definitely, um, and that's how I am with any of my friendships that I form now. I don't try to put on a fake face so that somebody will like me. And the more that they learn about me, it's just adding on to whatever they've already learned about me. And if they don't like that, they don't like it. This is me. Take it or leave
Yeah,
it.
take it or leave it. Well, I love that. I love your guys' story of how you met, and I love what made you guys fall in love with each other. If you could pick one thing that you about him that first 10 days, what was it that caught your attention the most?
Wow. That's really hard. Um, I'm gonna say,
It can be as shallow as he was just super cute.
oh, well, that was the first thing that caught my attention was, man, was he cute. And he had this way of his lip would always go up a little bit when he would talk. And it was just, I love that. But the thing that I loved about his personality from the very beginning and the thing that I loved all the way through was his wit and how funny he was. He was so quick and he was so funny, and people were just drawn to him. And that was something that I always loved about him.
There you go. And that was there till I met him. We were just talking about his wit, the things that would come out of that man's mouth. Just shocked me sometimes. It always made me laugh.
Yes, he was definitely shocking at times, especially later on with the dementia. But yeah, that was one of the things that it was missing for a while during a period of time. We'll talk about that later, but it was something that returned before he passed away, and I'm so thankful that it did, because that was one of the big things that I really missed about him. So anyway, that was how we met. That was our first 10 days together. Stay tuned for the continuation of this story.
Yes, I can't wait to hear part two.
Thanks, Jenna. I'll see you next time.
We'll see you. Bye.